Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really easy pasta dish that's way better than jarred pasta sauce. You'll only need a handful of ingredients. Most importantly, we'll need some Italian sausage. This is mild, but you can use sweet or hot as well, whatever you want. Plain ground beef just isn't going to cut it here. Italian sausage has a whole bunch of herbs in it, most importantly fennel, but there's lots of others, and we're going to want all of those in this sauce. Before we get to the stove, let's go ahead and get our onion and garlic ready. We're going to want to finely chop our onion, and we're going to mince our garlic very finely. And let's go ahead and chop that lemon in half. Now you could use a large can of tomato sauce and be fine, but usually those aren't made from the best tomatoes, and they usually come pre-seasoned. What I like to do is find the best can of whole tomatoes that I can find. These are San Marzanos. I'm going to use this here stick blender to blend these tomatoes. If you don't have one of these immersion blenders, you could use a regular blender, but that's a lot to clean up, honestly, and you might just be better off going with a can of sauce. But these blenders are awesome. They're only like 20 bucks, and they clean up super fast. Let's get a deep skillet going over medium heat. We're going to add about a tablespoon or two of olive oil, and we're going to put our sausage into the pan. We're going to break it up into pieces and let it start frying up. And we're not going to stop when it's gray. We're going to let it keep going until it's nice and brown. And you'll know when it starts browning because it'll start crackling, and when you scrape it off the bottom of the pan, it'll sound like this. We're also developing a nice fond on the bottom of the pan, and we're going to use that later. Once the sausage is good and browned, let's take it off the heat and put it into a bowl for later. Just be careful not to tip your pan up too far, or else you might drip some fat onto the stove like I did. Speaking of which, there's quite a lot of fat we have left over from our sausage, and I want to take advantage of that. So I'm going to pour all of it back into the pan. And we're going to use this delicious sausage fat to fry up our onions. Then we'll throw all of our onions into the pan and let that start frying off. Ideally, the onions would deglaze the fond off of the pan, but the fond was pretty far along and the onions weren't quite cutting it, so I had to add a little bit of water to encourage that fond to come off. And there's nothing wrong with adding water at this point. The water is going to evaporate, and the onions are still going to brown. We want that fond on the bottom. We don't want that to burn. Anyway, now's a good time to season with salt. It's good to season at every step. This is also a good time to add our lemon. Honestly, we probably could have deglazed with the lemon, but I was a little worried about it burning, and the truth is I kind of forgot about it, and I didn't have it handy, so I just used water. It also probably wouldn't quite have been enough liquid to really deglaze it, but whatever. And we're going to use both halves of the lemon here. This is a good time to go ahead and add our garlic. It's good to add it a little later in the cooking process so it doesn't burn. We're just going to let that saute for no more than a minute, and then we're going to go ahead and go in with our tomato sauce, or our blended tomatoes as they are. And I'm also going to go in with maybe a quarter of a cup of water. We'll give that a quick stir just to bring everything together and keep anything from burning on the bottom, and then we can go ahead and add in our sausage. And then we'll give that a quick stir to combine as well. And now we're going to add some seasonings. We're just going to use red pepper flakes and oregano, and I'm going to add about a teaspoon of each. And really, you should add however much you want. You should add it to taste. I'm going to add this stuff in, I'm going to stir it, and then I'm going to taste it. Obviously, I'm not just adding a teaspoon of something in here. I'm shaking it in off of the dasher. And depending on what brand you get and what dasher you have on top, that's going to differ. So, you just gotta season to taste. Speaking of, salt and pepper are also gonna go in right here. Whole bunch of black pepper and another good pinch of salt. And actually, I'm gonna add a controversial ingredient here, about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. You could add milk, you could completely omit this, doesn't matter. I like it in there. I think it helps it thicken a little bit. I'm also gonna add about a tablespoon of sugar here. Not because I want it to be sweeter or anything, but just because it'll help that canned tomato flavor go away a little bit. So we're letting it cook a little longer on the stove. And so we're going to let this simmer uncovered on the stove for about 15 or so minutes. And in the meantime, now's a good time to get our pasta going. Into a pot of boiling water, we're going to deposit our pasta. And this is about 2/3 of this bag. About 15 minutes later, and I'm going to give this sauce a taste, and it tastes great. Pasta's also done, but before I drain off the water, I'm going to add in some of this pasta water. This is about half a cup. The starch in the pasta water is going to help thicken our sauce a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and add in the rest of our pasta. It's a very good idea, by the way, to cook this to very al dente before adding it to the sauce because it's going to keep cooking a little bit more once we add it to our sauce. Now, optionally, we're going to add in a little bit of Parmesan cheese. You don't have to add this if you don't have it, but it's good in it, so I'm putting it in. And this is done now. It's going to thicken a little bit more when we take it off the heat, but it's perfect the way it is now, and let's try it and see how we did. And this is not really surprising to me, but this is fucking fantastic. I've made this for myself plenty of times in the past, and it's simple, and man, it's just really good. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you come by again sometime.